Good afternoon, everybody. We are so glad that you could join us today for our Highly Mobile and At-Risk Student Programs Division Zoom. This is our second one of the school year. We are going to go ahead and allow for everybody to get logged on, and so going to get started in another minute. Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Kelly Kravitz, and I'm the director of the Highly Mobile and At-Risk Student Programs Division. We are so grateful that you were able to join us for our second Zoom presentation of the 2021 school year. We have some excellent information and updates to provide to you today. We're going to be providing relevant program information and updates. We're going to be taking a deeper dive into some division resources and information that is available to both ESC and school leaders as you support highly mobile and at-risk students. Our agenda for today is outlined on this slide. So we're going to start out by talking about mental and behavioral health. We're then going to transition and talk about transition assistance for students who are homeless and students who are in foster care. We're going to talk a little bit about utilizing student data and engagement, some of the new PEIMS crisis codes, and some ways that you can be using that information. We're also going to take a little deeper dive into our highly mobile engagement guide, specifically talking about community collaboration. We're then going to provide you some general program updates, as well as provide some upcoming events and trainings, resources that are available to you, and then at the end, provide time for questions. Just as a quick overview, as I mentioned, we are the Highly Mobile and At-Risk Student Program Division. We exist to increase awareness and to build capacity and to improve the tools available and resources for schools to address the unique needs and statutory requirements of all highly mobile and at-risk students. And we are committed to improving the school experience and the education outcome of all highly mobile and at-risk students in Texas public schools. So a little bit about our division. We cover military-connected students, pregnancy-related services, foster care and student success, Texas Education for Homeless Children and Youth Program, our child abuse and neglect awareness and prevention, which includes all of our human trafficking, expanding work around human trafficking prevention and awareness, mental and behavioral health, as well as we represent the state and TEA on a number of committees concerning at-risk students and reports to the legislature. I'm now going to turn it over to Jordan Brown, who is going to discuss some housekeeping for you in today's presentation. Jordan?
Thanks, Kelly. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for making it to the webinar today. We're really excited to share this information with you. I just want to go over some quick housekeeping for technical support and engagement with you guys today. So today we'll be using a website called Padlet to receive any questions that you may have, as well as any technical difficulties. So we've provided the link here, so you can type that link into your browser, or you can also use your mobile device to take a picture of the QR code, and it'll take you to the Padlet resource. So we're not going to be using the Zoom chat. And for those of you on the YouTube live session, we're not going to be using the YouTube live chat either. Everything will have to go into the Padlet today. These questions, the questions that we receive on the Padlet are going to be the ones that we answer at the end today. And if we don't get to some of the questions on the Padlet, we'll be sending out an FAQ following the presentation. So, if you have a question that goes unanswered, it'll get answered later on. Next up, we will be recording the presentation. We're currently recording right now, and it'll be available to anyone, and it'll be posted on the Highly Mobile and At-Risk website. So we'll also be posting a PDF of the presentation. So all the resources that are included in this presentation today will be accessible later on, and we're going to send out an email to all the registrants announcing whenever we've submitted or whenever we've uploaded these resources afterwards. Okay, so this is a screenshot of what the Padlet looks like, just to get you familiar with how it works. If you want to take a second, if you haven't already, go ahead and type the link into your browser at the bottom left, or use your mobile device to scan the QR code. Be mindful that the link is case sensitive, so make sure to capitalize or lowercase each of the letters included. So as you can see, the columns on the Padlet align with our agenda items for today. So if you have a question, say during the mental and behavioral health section, you can press the plus button underneath that column and type in your question underneath there. So that way it stays a little more organized and we can answer questions based on agenda items. Just an FYI, the Padlet will be moderated. So if you don't see that your question has been approved automatically, just know that we're definitely seeing it. It just means that other people might not be able to see it, but I'll be going through and approving the ones that will be helpful for other people to see. As you can see, we also have a technical difficulties column on the far right. So if you have any technical issues with the Zoom platform, there are some suggestions available to you there. We also have the YouTube Live link. That may be the easiest way to kind of solve any problems, because the YouTube Live may just be easier to use than Zoom webinar. So that's available for you as well. We'll also be posting questions if we ask, we're going to have a couple of mental health questions available to the audience. So those will be appearing in the Padlet for you to, respond to in real time. We also have a resources column. This one is new from the last webinar. It includes a PDF of all the resources that we're going to be talking about today. So you get all the links ahead of time. You don't have to wait until after the presentation. So you can click on those as we're talking about them. Hopefully that'll be useful to you during the webinar today. Finally, if you want to include any feedback in the Padlet, you're welcome to do so. We also have a new survey that's going to be at the end of the presentation that you can respond to. So either one of those works just fine. We definitely welcome your feedback in any way that you give it to us. And finally, the Padlet will be closing at 5 p.m. today. So any questions that you may have, please make sure to answer them by 5 p.m. And I think that's everything, Kelly.
Excellent. Thank you, Jordan. So brief introduction of our team. As I mentioned, I am Kelly Kravitz, and I get to lead this amazing team. As you'll see here on the screen in the middle, we have Dr. Natalie Fikak, who's our AWARE State Coordinator. To the right, we have Julie Wayman, who's our mental behavioral health manager, as well as our interagency liaison. On the bottom left of the screen, you'll see Cal Lopez, who's our state coordinator for the Texas Education for Homeless Children and Youth program. And as you just heard from Jordan Brown, bottom right of the screen, she is our special projects coordinator in our division. Again, we are thrilled to be with you here today and have a dynamic team that is excited to share with you. And just a couple reminders as to where you can find our resources. Any resources that we've made available concerning COVID-19 and our response can be found on the TEA's COVID-19 resources webpage. And all of the resources within our division are found in 2 tabs. One is special populations, which you'll find on the center of that page. And that's where you'll find our specific at-risk student information. So that's and mobile student information. So students who are homeless, students who are military connected, students who are in foster care, as well as our human trafficking prevention information, our highly mobile engagement guide. And with the top, you'll see under general supports, that's where you'll find all of our mental and behavioral health resources. And so you'll be hearing a little bit more from the team today about those resources. So we have our COVID webpage. Resources are broken out from 1920 and then 2021. So if you go to the page, the 2021 resources are going to pop up, but there's still some very much relevant information that you can find under the 1920 tab. So just wanted to make sure that you know about that. We also have our division webpage, and that's where you can find individual information about all of our different program areas. You can also find information on webinars and trainings that our division is providing. So for example, our September Zoom is listed under the division webinars and trainings. And as Jordan mentioned, we developed an FAQ and have posted that presentation so that anybody, all of those questions, we answered them, as well as the presentation, you can view it there. And other webinars and trainings that the division has provided are also retained there. So I want to make sure that you can go back and view that. And please do make sure that you share with appropriate people within your school and within your district that can benefit from this information. Also, just wanted to remind everybody that please email disasterinfo@tea.texas.gov if you have any questions specific to the pandemic, COVID-19, our response, our Strong Start efforts. We want to hear from you. We want to answer those questions. So please do email the agency and then include the program contact or the program area so that we can be sure and see those questions as well, and so that we can provide relevant and timely guidance for you all. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Julie Wayman, who's going to be talking more about mental and behavioral health, and specifically our Safe and Supportive School program.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Julie Wayman, and I'm here to talk with you a little bit more about mental and behavioral health for about 32 minutes. Dr. Fikach and I are going to go over a few things. By the end of our 32 minutes with you, we're hoping that we can cover so you can see how the mental and behavioral health initiatives we're working on are connected to the Safe and Supportive School program today. We're going to cover a little bit about educator wellness and a key component and also some activities you can do right away in that construct. And just overall, a few action steps that you can take right now on some mental and behavioral health elements. So let's get started. TEA's Safe and Supportive School program. How is mental health, school mental health, integrated into the Safe and Supportive School program? And is it? Let's learn a little more about that together. Back just a year ago, a little over a year ago, some of you might remember that the governor produced a document entitled Improving School Safety in Texas. And inside that document are things on the left, constructs that were important to focus groups that the governor held with school safety and mental health and superintendents and many experts and stakeholders in the community. Making it safe to learn includes these kinds of features: positive school climates, behavioral threat assessments, systems of support, staff training. And, you know, it's so important that we remember that we're all continually improving, all of us at the agency and all of us out in schools and in ESCs, and that emergency management is something that we really want to have our arms around. So we took the governor's initiative, and also the legislature took the governor's initiative in the next slide. And the agency began to discuss this and realized that there was a school safety ecosystem that is really happening all around us. And many people are a part of that. And when we think about a whole community approach to school safety, we really think about, right, the school community is in the middle. And just thinking of it as a school community is one fact. The school community includes students, the staff, including our educators, includes our parents, our partners that we bring in to work with us in the school. With the school as a hub, we have all of these organizations and professionals that work around us to support us. And we in the school community work to help engage our partners and to keep everyone safe and well with this whole approach to school safety. So from there, We discussed this as an agency with partners. And then on our next slide, we were responding to the legislature. What happened next then in 19, as you remember, the 86th legislature gave the agency and school districts a charge for school safety. And there were three key components to that. One, strengthening safety and emergency protocols, very important and key. The second, expand mental health initiatives. There were several bills, and we've talked about them in TETNs throughout last year, that were initiated for schools, for TEA, for ESCs that we've been working toward together. And they provided some funding for schools to increase safety and security on campuses. Now, all of this was codified through Senate Bill 11. And you know, that affects all of the 5.6 million students in our state. And I'm going to talk a little bit about these key buckets that the agency has put on this slide and discussed with the legislature as it's throughout all of the legislation. Psychological safety for all Texas students and physical safety. And let's dive into that just a little bit more. So the concept of physical safety, when you think about physical safety, you probably think about some of the key features like the physical security features that we would have on our campus, environmental design, hardening equipment that we might put in place, and even evaluating our policies and procedures, right, to make sure our students are safe. Other kinds of practices in place, including our drills and our responses to emergency management. And then there's the concept of psychological safety. Throughout Senate Bill 11, House Bill 18, many of the bills that we've all been working toward implementing, we figured this is all going to take a few years, physical and psychological safety, as we wrap around the Safe and Supportive School program as it rolls out. So I'm wondering what you think of when you think of psychological safety. Can you think of one example of what your organization is doing to address psychological safety? And if you could think of one thing that you're doing to address psychological safety that's in the school environment, what might it be? And if you could type that into the Padlet under mental and behavioral health, we'd like to get some of your thoughts. What's an example of what your organization is doing to address psychological safety in the school environment? And Natalie's going to let us know what she sees pop up in the Padlet. And as we talk and as you think about it, I'm going to suggest a few things. I'm going to suggest psychological safety includes the mental and behavioral health component. It includes emotional well-being of our students, of our staff. It includes ensuring a positive school climate. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. And building trust, relationships between teachers and students, between teachers and faculty and allied school support staff and parents. Includes access to mental health services in the school, referrals that we can provide and support parents and families with. It includes restorative practices and building our skills in those constructs. It would also include things like conflict resolution skills and all the relationship building that we do, listening, providing voice for students, teaching these skills, learning how to manage emotions, behavior regulation, all of the things that we work on in the area of mental and behavioral health. Natalie, did anyone talk about anything that they might be doing?
We have a lot of great information. What I'm seeing is one thing is allowing people to work virtually.
Okay.
Different types of restorative check-in circles for students and staff. Employee assistance programs, additional COVID leave options. Rhythm, which is a check-in. It's an app where students can check in on their mental and SEL well-being.
Right.
Having counselors and social workers available, bullying prevention and awareness. Checking in daily, being really intentional about checking in with your students and your staff. Wellness lessons for staff and students. Trauma-informed practices, peace corners, counseling services, peer mediation.
Wow. Just look at all that. This is just a few examples from a little over 800 of us who are here on this webinar gathered together that you were able to type in there right away that you are doing. All of these things are what the legislature intended and that we know that research supports for psychological safety for our students. All of this is integrated into our Safe and Supportive School program. So thank you for those contributions, and Natalie and I are going to keep those as we go forward into the future. So to keep us moving through our 30 minutes here, let's just keep talking about this and keep physical safety and psychological safety in the back of your mind. And you experts who are on this call today, think about how you can continue to weave that into everything that you're doing as you work to create a safe and supportive school. You know, what you're doing, if you think about it, the supportive piece of that is where a lot of us are doing our work, supporting our faculty, supporting our students. And another thing I loved was that some of the examples you shared were how we support each other as adults in the building. It's that taking care of ourselves first, also taking care of the adults, because we have to be well. We have to be taken care of so we can best support the difficulties that our students and our parents bring, where we can listen and support them. So thank you for adding the educator wellness piece, and we'll dive into that in a minute. Natalie, you know, if we can just take a step back, some of you have been doing some of this work for a long time, and we know that. We are just accelerating it in our state, which is a beautiful thing that our legislature has given us this direction. You know, many of us were working in disconnected ways, disconnected efforts, different levels of focus. You know, we had sort of our school mental and behavioral health living over in a bubble, and our school safety and security living in one, and academics and learning supports living in a bubble. And Senate Bill 11 started saying to us, you know, let's bring all of this together. And so in the next slide, the agency got together and did some strategic planning and really talked about visualizing this visual right here with psychological and physical safety for everyone in the school environment being in the center of it all. And that includes our students, it includes our staff, and then it includes all of those features around it, the school mental and behavioral health, our academics, our learning, our funding, and our targeted and aligned programs that we all work in, so that we don't all work in silos, but we're all rowing in a direction that includes psychological and physical safety, and that we think of our school safety and security in that way. So the agency has kind of shown us that where we can have increase in coordination, we can use our data to drive that continuous improvement, and where we can support across our campuses, our educators, our students, and our staff. This is what leads us, these interconnected responsibilities toward a safe and supportive school in our statewide goal of ensuring psychological and physical safety for all. And in our next slide, we talk a little bit more about the Safe and Supportive School program. Now we have these draft pillars that we're working on around supporting, promoting a positive school climate. And I'm gonna make an assumption that a lot of you on this call know what that means. You know, it describes a range of your campus conditions, safety, engagement, the environment that influences student learning and their well-being. That includes our physical spaces and surroundings that they're appropriate, our supportive academic settings, clear and fair disciplines practices, just building that respect and that trust within our faculty and within our schools and within our students working with each other. It makes sure that we have available social, emotional, and behavioral supports for our kids. And then that multi-tiered system of support was called out within Senate Bill 11 itself, that we build that multi-tiered system of support in order to put these features into practice, to these supports into practice. And we've taken dives into that, and we're going to take more deep dives into that later. So as we keep on going, another pillar is that we conduct behavioral threat assessments. And a lot of people understood behavioral threat assessments as being a key part of the Safe and Supportive School program. And so what TEA did with building the pillars is to show as behavioral threat assessments are key in identifying threats and risk. But we also understood as we worked and got the training for behavioral threat assessments, how important the prevention work is, how important tier 1 and tier 2 supports are for students, so we can build those skills that we talked about earlier that many of you put into the examples for school mental and behavioral health to prevent threats and violence. And to that end, we want to ensure as school stakeholders, all of us together, that our staff are well trained. And yes, we have boxes to check, but that we figure out how do we integrate and blend and facilitate ongoing communities of learning so that we can continue to grow and be nurtured ourselves in the training, as well as nurturing our students and our families. And then also, in addition, we continue to collect that data And it's all kind of data. I'm going to tell you, it's qualitative data, it's quantitative data, and we have a lot more information that we'll talk about as we keep going and building this program over the next few years about how we can continuously improve our work together. Life is a continuous improvement process, and we'll continue to do that in the SSSP. And then supporting the emergency planning and execution that the Texas School Safety Center leads. And it is so important to what we do to prepare for crisis and prepare for the worst, and to prevent and mitigate and respond and recover. So anyway, the proposed rules for the SSSP are up at the link at the Texas Register on the Commissioner's proposed rules site. These are pending TEA response to public comment. Thank you to everyone who commented. Lots of enthusiasm for the rules, some suggestions for enhancement, improvement. So we're going through that right now, and with a goal of adopting those rules in December to help set you all up to just get started in December as we build over the long term together. So these pillars are something that we'll keep in mind. Now, when we built the pillars and we built the rule, that was before COVID-19, wasn't it? And now we have COVID-19's impact on school safety. And you all know this and have been thinking about this and using the resources and the Strong Start guidance. And I just like to see, when we think about this school safety that we're talking about right now, what impact are you seeing in your school or organization? And if you can type some examples of what you're seeing in your school or organization regarding the impact of COVID that we need to address as we think about school safety, physical and psychological, in our schools right now. So type that into the Padlet as you think about any examples in your organization that you're seeing. So Natalie can read some of those out for us. Natalie, is anybody typing anything into the Padlet?
Not quite yet. It's been added in a column next to the mental health and behavioral health column. It says, what impact are you seeing?
I think that's great. Thank you for adding that. And I will just say, I would just mention a few things, just to kind of prime the pump, that we've heard from a lot of school districts, from counselors, from educators, from administrators. We've heard about some declining social skills, some behavioral coping skills, emotionally, as well as behaviorally, some decrease in resiliency as students struggle with family, grief, and loss that people have been seeing, whether it's lives lost, whether it's jobs, whether it's housing, and these things affecting mental health. So this affects the psychological domain, and it can also affect the physical domain in terms of students and their coping skills and behavior regulation strategies, right? In the school environment, in the physical environment, and then in the remote environment, some of you may be also typing some things that you're seeing in terms of how we double down, Natalie.
Sure. So we're seeing death in family or friend circles, or employees and students, overwhelmed staff, entire schools being quarantined, which is leading to anxiety and overwhelm, teachers' stress, stigmatization and isolation of affected students and families once they've recovered, grief, bereavement, suicidal ideation, being away from work due to quarantine, so not having face-to-face contact, constant cleaning by the custodial staff, decrease in engagement, anxiety increase, social skill deficits, gaps in learning, disruptions, connections are not the same, high anxiety, overwhelm, students and parents scared to report that they're sick, online learning lagging behind, family members or coworkers who are hospitalized, trauma, confusion around expectations. Teachers and staff are tired, very anxious, stressed, multiple risk assessments, lack of or overrepresentation of empathy. And we've heard about that, toxic positivity, that's something that we have heard at the agency.
Thank you, Natalie, for those. And, you can continue to type as you think about things, just getting this out is important. And this is important for us to know as an agency, what you're dealing with and what you're seeing out there as we continue to work through things that we can do with ensuring that our safe and supportive school teams get stood up and that they get trained, that we start building our multi-tiered systems of support for our teachers, right? And we'll talk about that in a little bit. And for our students as well, that we work together in team to do that, that we have opportunities to listen to each other, and that we have opportunities for our students to listen, and that we also have opportunities to engage with our families, and that we have access to resources. And what we want to do is just to continue to support each other. And we're going to continue to drive out resources and drive and support you all with this work, Natalie, as we go to the next slide. As you train your teams, you develop and implement your policy and your programs, and you gather and report your data. I know that the School Safety Center has links to the behavior threat assessment training on its website. Many of the ESCs have safe and supportive school behavioral threat assessment team trainings. There'll be some more trainings coming out in the new year, so we're not like overwhelming you all right now, but we are building some more supports for you for the new year as you build your policies and your programs for trauma-informed practices and safe and supportive schools. And I know that right now your superintendents have received a link from TEA just to kind of report data on where you guys are at with this, sort of a baseline, so TEA can kind of know where are you on some of the elements that were required in the statute for the safe and supportive schools. And some of that was optional, some is required in the survey, but some of you may be involved with that survey and gathering the data. But just so you know, it's out there, and we're going to take a look, and we'll help use that as part of our needs assessment too, to figure out how we can support you better in the new year as well. So Natalie, if we could, I want to give just a few points here I want to make. Our school mental health components are integrated all the way through our safe and supportive school program. And so keeping that in mind, we know how important this is for faculty as well as students. So I just wanted to point that out so we can make that point so that everybody understands the linkage and the connectedness so we all don't stay in our silos. And next, Natalie, I want to be able to say a few key points on mental health before I turn it over to Natalie to talk about educator wellness. A key point for many of you who might be counselors or educators who work with families, whatever your role is, that you're giving resources to families, make sure that you keep that at a glance list with your crisis and your resource numbers handy on your desktop. If you haven't downloaded it, download it. And you can annotate this list, and you may in your district have a deeper resource guide, which I would love and hope that you do. But this is a really great place to start with some phone numbers. And you always want to help people by making sure that they have other people that they can talk to, connecting teachers, not just students, but connecting teachers and each other with some of these helplines, support lines, or community resources that are deeper through Aunt Bertha and others. Definitely the suicide hotline, you want to have that, and you want to continue with our COVID-19 mental health support line that HHSC runs. So this is not over. We're still in this. And, stigma, to reduce stigma, one thing that we can do is be the one that says, hey, let's use these resources. Feel free to use resources. Feel free to call. Feel free to talk. And feel free to listen. And this helps to reduce stigma when we keep it out in the open, and normalize the fact that grief and trauma are real and that we all are experiencing it. So if we can do that, that is very, very helpful. And next, I want to say a resource. I'm going to promote a resource very strongly. And as you listen to me talk about this for a couple minutes, I want you to be able to go into the mental and behavioral health page. This isn't something that we have a column for or anything right now, but if you're an ISD that's interested in Project Restore, if you want to let us know that, we are looking for a few ISDs to pilot this. So keep that in mind, and I'll talk about it in a minute. We have a very important resource that TEA developed specifically for COVID-19 that is very, very key, because we know that adverse childhood experiences have been exponentially increasing out there for our children. We know that our faculty has been impacted by grief and trauma during this pandemic. And so TEA has developed a trauma-informed practices training, 6 modules that are very relevant for the pandemic and going forward for trauma-informed grief and trauma-informed practices. These will help you, help your faculty, and there's many different ways that this can be implemented. We have the resource link here, and Jordan will be connecting it. Each of the 6 videos are 25 to 35 minutes long, not very long. They are engaging. You have a facilitator's companion guide where these can be used for teams within your school, faculty groups to sit and watch together and have discussions around each of these videos. There's transcripts. You can earn CEUs for these. At the end of watching one, you can print a CEU out. You do it as a group, you can do it as a group and print one out for your team that's reviewing each of the training modules. And these do count toward, I know many of you are counting and taking your grief and trauma informed training that's required from the TEA website. This meets that requirement. And I mentioned a minute ago that we are looking for some ISDs that would be willing to pilot it LEA wide. So throughout your LEA, that's a charter or a district, right? And where you would pilot this using the facilitation guide and implementing Project Restore, it would require a pre kind of survey about where you're at with trauma-informed practices and kind of a post one. It's going to kind of run January through May. And if you're interested in that and possibly working with us, go ahead and put your LEA into the mental and behavioral health column so that we can be made aware of that as we are going to recruit and select a small pilot. There's no money attached to it, but it is a professional learning and it is to help address some of these issues that we talked about earlier and that you put into the chat. And, you know, now I'm going to turn it over to Natalie to go a little bit deeper into I forgot one thing. So I am going to tell you one more thing coming soon. And there is going to be a preview webinar on Thursday, November 19th for anyone who wants more information on our school mental health and practice guide toolkit version 1 that we will be releasing right for the new 2021 school year. If you'd like a walkthrough and a preview of that for 1 hour, we have a link here on the right there on the screen. If you want to take a photo of that link or grab it, or Natalie can grab that and put that into maybe we can get that into the Padlet. We're happy for you all to register at that link. There is a registration. It requires your email so that when the toolkit is finished, I'll have all of your emails to make a distribution list from. So we invite you to join us from 10:30 to 11:30 on November 19th. Natalie, let's take a little dive into educator wellness.
Thanks so much, Julie. Hi, my name is Natalie Peacock. Excited to have a few minutes with you to just take a look at the educator wellness document, specifically one portion of it. So in case that you're not aware about this, this resource, this dropped on August 20th. It's still very relevant to what's happening right now as we stop and start multiple times throughout this school year. And our educators are experiencing a lot of stress and anxiety right now. You can see that it's located under general support. You can also pull up a QR code and download the document. It's 14 pages. And what we're going to do today, there are 4 steps in really working through educator wellness. The first thing you have to do as a multi-tiered system of support MTSS team is plan for what this is going to look like. What will an MTSS look like in supporting educators? Assess, then build and train. What I'm going to spend some time talking about this afternoon is specifically around assessing. When we think about assessing our educators, it's really important that we understand what our educators are feeling, what they're going through, and the way that we could do that is by conducting a landscape analysis and how to assess the mental health needs and the social service needs of our educators. And if you download that document, there's several different samples that you can take a look at, one being Quantum Workplace, one being the HRQRL, the health-related quality of life, and then the ProQual, which we're going to look at in just a minute. Also, at the end of this document, there are some sample questions that you could create your own survey within your district so you can truly assess the needs. We've got to know, we have to ensure that our educators know that the data that is collected is really going to help build that multi-tiered system of support to build a culture of wellness and resiliency. Within that team and within your school district and your campuses, we've got to provide a time and space for frequent processing and reflection especially as things change, what seems like by the day. Ensuring that we have ongoing wellness touch points where we're continually assessing and reassessing the supports that might be needed for our educators, because we know things happen and we need to continually reassess. I would imagine with the holidays coming up, the holiday season, our holidays will look much different than they have in the past. And so just understanding that what all of our educators and our students and families may be going through, that's going to be really important to do an assessment right around that time. Something else to consider is hosting a remote resource fair for your school staff. So reaching out to the different organizations, agencies, child serving agencies, mental health agencies within your community, which could include faith-based organizations, could include your local mental health authority, and maybe host a remote resource fair where the resources and the supports that could be provided by those different agencies could be highlighted in a real quick 2 to 3 minute elevator speech where that information could be added to your referral pathways. Could be easily be done on Zoom, Google Hangouts, or within Teams. Make sure you share that TEA state mental and behavioral health resource list that Julie just discussed. And of course, as school leaders, we need to always continue to communicate and be fully transparent of what's going on, because really committing to create a culture of open and honest feedback, transparency, and vulnerability so that staff members can feel safe expressing their individual needs and concerns. Make sure that we have put some things in place for confidentiality and really explain those limits. Also, whenever we think about how we can assess the well-being of staff and how we can continue to support them, there are a few things that are on the document I'd like to discuss. STAT is actually an online virtual assessment that our educators can take. It assesses the level of secondary traumatic stress that they have experienced. It is evidence-informed and research-based. And within that whatever the findings are, there will be opportunities for the educators to walk through and work through some of that trauma in a virtual setting, hopefully, obviously, with a buddy or an accountability partner. A couple other things would be buddy classrooms. I actually saw a couple of you type that into the Padlet. Tap in, tap out, making sure that you have something in place whenever you feel like you need to catch your breath. Take a moment to get refocused, to go back to do what needs to be done. Setting up a staff calming room, either in a remote setting or in an in-person setting. I remember seeing, and there still are so many great remote calming rooms that have been set up in a virtual setting. You know, having pillows and blankets and maybe a waterfall and some healthy snacks and some dim lighting, and in a place where our educators can really go just to recharge and maybe reconnect back with their purpose. Really creating a culture of Wellness Wednesday, where every Wednesday there are tips and tools and ideas on how our educators can support themselves and others, and really being the champion behind that. In a remote setting, setting up remote check-in times with our staff to make sure that they have what they need. And then really promoting some self-care activities. And I might actually extend that and say self-compassion activities, which really means we are living in an act of self-care where we are taking care of our needs and our well-being at all the time. And we know that really starts at the top. That has to start with our senior leaders and our principals modeling that. Another important step whenever we think about assessing the well-being of our staff is to really coordinate with the district human resources department to make sure that what's needed in place. And then, of course, be patient, model empathy, and give grace, and continually reassess those needs. I just briefly want to show you a next step for you would be to take a look at this ProQual, this online resource and a scale that could be used with your staff to gauge what their needs are, so that when you're working within that educator wellness multi-tiered system of support, you have some firm data to make decisions based on the needs specific to your campus. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Cal who's going to talk to us about some new commissioner roles.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm excited to be here this afternoon with you to share some information about new commissioner roles. My name is Cal Lopez, and I am the Texas Education for Homeless Children and Youth Program Coordinator. I know in previous webinars, we talked about the new commissioner roles. So I wanted to let you know that they were adopted and are now in effect as of March 30th. The rules assist with the transition of students who are homeless or in substitute care as they transition from one school to another. Local education agencies, it provides guidance on the requirements of the Texas Educational Code 25007. And so today we're going to take a deeper dive on one of those components, which is Rule 89.1603 that deals with transfer of student records and transcripts. So as you can see here, we've kind of summed up the rule and the main components. And so we're going to go over today about the requirements for district and open enrollment charter schools. They must ensure that copies of student records are made available to schools in which students who are experiencing homelessness or in substitute care have recently transferred to, that the transfer of student records must occur within 10 working days of the request of the enrolling school, and that the records of students who are experiencing homelessness or in foster care cannot be withheld if they have not returned or paid for instructional materials or technological equipment. And as you can see in the bottom of the slide, I have included 3 TEC codes that help support this rule. These TEC codes are already in effect and are part of the foundation of the rule that we have developed. Next, also, proof of enrollment in the new school district or open enrollment charter school permits retroactive withdrawal from the previous school district or charter school. Student records must be requested, sent, and received using the Texas Record Exchange or TREX system. And if a school district or open enrollment charter school does not receive the requested information within 10 working days, then the current school may report the non-compliant district or charter school to the division responsible for TREX support of TEA. I wanted to note that the rule reinforces what's already required. And as I indicated before, we did provide the TEC codes that do help to support this rule. And we also wanted to let you know that as we're going to provide you some resources to help with the implementation of this rule. So here on this slide, I wanted to refer to the Student Attendance Accounting Handbook. We actually have been receiving a lot of inquiries about student records. And so I wanted to share this resource that will be very helpful. As you know, every year, TEA releases a new Student Attendance Accounting Handbook. The version for the 2020-21 school year recently went through public comment. It closed on September 28th. And the proposed effective date for the 2021 Student Attendance Accounting Handbook should be November 29th. So the information that I'm sharing with you and would refer to is the 2019-20 Student Attendance Accounting Handbook. And I have provided the link below. But within the Student Attendance Accounting Handbook, it does indicate that when a student moves from one Texas public school district or charter school to another, the student records must be transferred via the TREX system within 10 days. And I wanted to share that outlined in the Student Attendance Accounting Handbook, it lists the 18 components that will be included in the TREX request. And so I encourage you to look at this resource so that way if a highly mobile student does come to your campus and they identify themselves as a homeless student or as a foster care student, and they have missing records, you can reference on page 51 of the Student Attendance Accounting Handbook all the items that will be provided in the TREX request, and so that you'll know what you'll be receiving through that system. In addition, also highlighted in the Student Attendance Accounting Handbook is guidance regarding a parent or guardian has up to 30 days from the date of enrollment to provide proof of the student's identity. And this again is also highlighted in the Student Attendance Accounting Handbook. And this is a great resource to utilize. Again, working with our students who are homeless or in foster care and do not have their current records. I wanted to share that proof of ID includes birth certificate, a driver's license, a military ID, or school records. And on page 38, it does outline the 10 documents that could be considered proof of ID when a student and family comes to enroll. And so this is another great resource to utilize. We've had many inquiries about students and families that have missing documents, and we want to share that this is part of the transition of students' records and enrollment process. So we wanted to highlight these resources that are available for you to reference to help ease the transition regarding records and transcripts. On the next slide, we've also gotten many questions about immunizations and provisional enrollment. So I wanted to highlight the Texas Department of State Health Services, students without an immunization record. Here you can see on this slide that it does provide guidance for a student who is homeless or in foster care, and also for our military connected students regarding a 30-day provisional enrollment if they do not have proof of the immunizations or if they need to start a series of immunizations. So again, we wanted to share this information because we have received so many questions about enrollment and student records. I also wanted to highlight that this information is also available in the Student Attendance Accounting Handbook. So on page 39, it does discuss immunizations and provisional enrollment for students who are experiencing homelessness and for military connected students. And so here on the next page, we wanted to talk about next steps and student considerations when we're building our systems and supports for transition of student records and transcripts. So as part of the rule, our local education agencies, which encompasses both school districts and charter schools, you must go back and review, revise, or develop your local district or campus processes and procedures to support the transition of student records. You should be collaborating with your campus registrar and also your district PEIMS coordinator if you're needing additional assistance to ensure the transfer of student records within 10 working days. You should be stepping back and reviewing, revising, or developing district and campus policies regarding fees, fines, and student records. And again, you should also be collaborating with your campus registrar to review enrollment and retroactive withdrawal data. As I had indicated earlier, that in the Student Attendance Accounting Handbook on page 50, it does talk about withdrawal procedures and how with proof of enrollment in a different district or campus, retroactive withdrawals are permitted to the day a student enrolled in another school. So we listed that in our rule, but it's also, there is already a TEC code that helps support that, and it's also listed in the Student Attendance Accounting Handbook. So if for any reason a student had to move quickly and was unable to withdraw from the previous school, once they show up to a new school and enrolled, that information can be used to enter a retroactive withdrawal information. So I wanted to highlight that. Again, as I've said, we received many questions about records and withdrawals, immunizations, and how to proceed with record requests. So we highly encourage you that with our students who are experiencing homelessness or in foster care, to help mitigate the challenges and barriers to their highly mobile situations, that you work with your campus and district staff to help expedite the transfer of student records and for secondary students, their transcripts. In addition, I also wanted to share that in the Student Attendance Accounting Handbook, it also provides more information about school districts and charter schools not being exempt from releasing records if the student owes fees and fines for lost textbooks, including electronic textbook equipment or technology. So again, that is highlighted on page 52 of the Student Attendance Accounting Handbook. So we wanted to share this great information today for you about the rule. As we continue to have our webinars, we're going to share different sections of the rule and provide you this information. I also wanted to ask you on the Padlet to share any best practices that you may have implemented to help with the transition of student records or transcripts to help support our students experiencing homelessness. Next, we are going to transition to engaging highly mobile and at-risk students. And I just really love this picture of this student. It's one of my favorite pictures. And so in previous webinars, we have covered different components of our highly mobile and at-risk student guide. And so this guide was released by the agency in August. We have provided the link where you can locate this resource. And today we're going to go ahead and talk about the latter part, well, actually two different components of the guide. This guide has great resources regarding utilizing district reporting data for strategic planning. It also covers mitigating transitional barriers to support academic achievement, working with your uncontactable students, student support teams, protocols for home visits, innovative outreach efforts, establishing protocols for concerns, and effective practices to support student basic needs. And so we're going to cover a little more information over utilizing data and effective practices to support students' basic needs. So here on this slide, I also love this picture. I always love pictures of our students because it always gives us a focus, a face and a focus to all the great work that we are here doing with our students. And so in previous webinars, we've talked about the 2019-20 crisis coding data and how to utilize that to work with students who weren't engaged or uncontactable, and then utilizing that with your academic data to work with those students. For this section, we are going to go ahead and cover 2020-21 COVID-19 crisis codes. They were developed to inform policymakers, to support best practices, and to ensure maximum funding for LEAs. We actually have two sets of codes, which are codes 8A, B, and C, that were submitted as part of the fall PEIMS submission on October 5th. And these codes were developed to capture on September 28th, students that were being instructed on campus through remote synchronous method or through the remote asynchronous method. Then, actually, it will be tomorrow, districts will be submitting additional information that is a snapshot. And actually, as of October 30th, which is the snapshot date, codes 9A, B, and C, students who are being instructed on campus through remote synchronous method or through the remote asynchronous method. So I wanted to go ahead and share this resource because this data, once it's submitted, you should be collaborating with either your campus registrar, PEIMS coordinator, and then looking at our highly mobile students to identify how they are receiving instruction. And so I ask you after this webinar to go back to your campus and to your district and visit with, like I said, your campus registrar or your PEIMS director or your leadership and reflect on, is your LEA providing in-person, fully remote, or hybrid learning? And then what percentage of students in your district or charter school are utilizing these options? And then how does that compare to the percentage of highly mobile students utilizing these options. So you should be able to work with your campus or district staff to run reports by these crisis codes, which if you want to look at it as of September 28th, it would have been 8A, B, and C, or as of snapshot, which is 9A, 9B, and 9C. And then run your special populations report, run your highly mobile student reports. How does this look compared to students who are homeless or students who are in foster care, are military connected students, students receiving pregnancy related services? How does this look at for other special populations, students who are migrant, students who are receiving special education services, students who are in gifted and talented? What do these populations look like utilizing these options? And how does that compare to the general population? Once you've also received this information, I highly encourage you to work with your campus or your district PEIMS coordinator to look at your overall student identification for your highly mobile and at-risk student populations. Has student identification decreased? Has it increased? Or is it about the same? This data is so important to help ensure that we have located any uncontactable students, to see if there are any trends in increased identification, or it could be the opposite. Is there trends in decreased identification? And this will help to map out what sort of tools, what sort of interventions, what sort of academic monitoring we need to be developing to ensure that we're meeting the unique needs of all our highly mobile and at-risk student populations, but also to identify any challenges or barriers that they are facing. In addition, we want to look at what percentage of highly mobile students you have not been able to contact or locate. We know as of snapshot, it takes a picture at this point in time of the district enrollment and also our at-risk student populations. We've also known that the school start window has already closed. So there should be a list of students that we were either unable to locate and re-engage back into school, or we have not been able to contact. And once you receive this information, again, working with your campus or district PEIMS contact, and you want to go ahead and run that by your various highly mobile and at-risk student populations, what does this look like to the overall LEA percentage of students that you have not been able to contact and locate? Because this will be very telling whether it's something specific to a certain group of students, or is it something that's happening across the district? Again, utilizing data to develop strategies to be proactive, to identify gaps to support our students. And once you have determined that information, then we want to step back and look at your academic data reports. For many of our school districts, we've already had several grading periods. As a former homeless liaison, I worked very closely with my district PEIMS coordinator to create reports in which I could monitor attendance, grades, at-risk indicators, credits earned versus credits attempted, and to monitor dual or even times multi-identification of students who were experiencing homelessness or in foster care, and were they also receiving services under special education or gifted and talented. You're going to want to look at your migrant students, again, our military connected students, our pregnancy related services. We're going to want to step back and look at this data and see, are there any trends to attendance? What are the trends to our grades after our grading period? And I know each district has a different cycle for grading period. The district that I was at, elementary students, the grading period was every 9 weeks. Our secondary students were every 6 weeks. And what I would do is I would run the grade reports and then notify my point of contacts at each campus, a list of students who were identified as homeless, and if they failed a course and which course that was. In addition to that, I would then also include if the student was receiving special education services or special education contact. If it was an EL student, the EL contact. If it was a gifted and talented student, the gifted and talented contact. And so that we were all on the same page, we were all coming together to monitor these students, to put them in our line of sight so that we could be proactive by utilizing data to identify any trends to help support our students. This is the time right now. This is a key important time right now to step back and see what is working and what is not working. What are the challenges or barriers? And I know right now you are on the front lines. You are the heart and soul of your campuses and your districts if you're here today to listen and learn more. And so I ask you to step back, go back to your campus and ask questions. And how do we monitor the academic data for our highly mobile and at-risk student populations? And how can we partner with other special populations to ensure that we're harnessing all our resources and all our staff to support our students? For those of you who were able to attend our summit, I talked about being an agent of change. And so you may be sitting here and saying, Cal, that's a lot of information. Where do I start? So you first start by going back to your campus or district and having those conversations to see what reports they're already running. If they're already running attendance reports and grade reports, then you can ask them then to pull out the specific information to our special population that we're trying to monitor, whether it is homeless students, it's foster care students, military connected students, pregnancy related services. They all have a unique indicator code, along with our EL students, our students receiving special education services. We've talked about gifted and talented, even if they're receiving 504 students, and they will be able to help you pull that data and step back and take a look at it. Because it is data that tells the story of the challenges and barriers that our students and families are facing. So let's go here and look at our next steps. What are our next steps? First of all, what is the district or campus process to monitor student daily attendance for in-person, hybrid, or fully remote instruction? And then can it be modified so then you can take it up another level and monitor a specific population? Develop attendance intervention plans to ensure students are on track to meet the 90% attendance rule. First, you always need to look back at what your district, your local policy is for attendance intervention plans and how they're being implemented. And then how are we going above and beyond to help mitigate or identify challenge and barriers for our highly mobile students? Monitoring student grades and credits. Again, there are already processes developed at the campus and district level to be monitoring this information. So how do we tap into working on that report and pulling out a specific student population? So reaching out first on your campus level, because they do run grade and failure reports. As a former secondary registrar, I remember my principal coming into my office to ask me for a report of students who failed by the grading period, by grade level and by subject level. And then that can also then be broken down by specific population. Last, develop and provide credit repair and credit recovery opportunities. Right now is the time to step back and look at our secondary student grades and level of engagement and determine proactively what we need to implement for credit recovery and credit repair. We have, depending on your school district and when you started, it may be one more grading period. And then we have the end of semester grades and credits earned. And so we already need to be proactive in utilizing this data to determine what interventions are needed for our students. So some key actions for success in utilizing data for strategic planning. First, step back and go look at our crisis codes and academic data reports to identify trends in student program identification, patterns of student engagement, progress, growth, or academic gaps for this school year. Look at student groups or special student populations that need additional academic progress monitoring or targeted academic and interventions and support. And to also then discuss on a campus or district level, strategies needed to support academic achievement for highly mobile and at-risk student populations. So I'm going to share with you, start one step at a time, work with your campus or district PIMS contact to see what would be the easiest points of data that they may already be pulling, that then they can then break down to specific student populations and look at what that looks like compared to your overall population. We know that these are challenging times and that every day you are doing your best to ensure that students are engaged and they're successful. And so we just wanted to provide you some additional strategies to help support you. So next, we're going to go ahead into another section of the Highly Mobile guide. And this is building community partnerships to support basic needs. And I absolutely love this picture. You're going to see I always have pictures of students because to me, school is always a safe and happy place to them. I know that we're facing a great challenge as we have been with remote learning, and there is some transition to in-person or hybrid. But I want to let you know that us providing education for our students, no matter how we're doing it, makes a huge impact in our students' lives. So community partnerships. In the past, we've talked about how community partnerships are key. They're important to address and meet student basic needs because we know right now our families and our students are facing huge challenges due to COVID-19. And so oftentimes they are faced with food insecurities, with challenges to connectivity and school supplies, hygiene items, and also housing insecurities. We know that a lot of our families who traditionally may not be someone who would experience a loss of housing is actually at this time more at risk for the loss of housing than ever before because of COVID-19. So in the past, I've talked about developing community partnerships and having a communication plan. And I wanted to share with you that I have talked to several ESC staff and several school districts about the needs of students, especially during COVID-19. And I've also reflected on my own experience as a former homeless liaison. And right now is November, and it seems like December is not too far away and the holiday break. So oftentimes this was the time of year in which I really was working with my community partners to look at how I could provide support for our students and families over the holiday during the holiday season, sorry. And so I wanted to talk a little more about this when it came about to community partnerships. And so in the past, we talked about stepping back and prioritizing identified needs of our students. And that may be ever evolving and ever changing. We know that many districts are providing free breakfast and lunch to our students and families. So food may or may not be an issue. Oftentimes, there's always food insecurity. Stepping back when you're looking at working at community partnerships, looking at the students that you would want to serve. And so I've had several districts reach out to me and say, Cal, the need is so large and I don't have anything like this set up. Where do I start? And so I want to share with you, you start small. You don't have to start big. You start either one campus at a time or one student population at a time and one community partner at a time. I was a homeless liaison for over 10 years. And the system of community partnerships and collaboration I had took time to build. And sometimes you want to start with something simple and basic. And so that's why I say you need to identify what the student needs are. And then you need to look at the number of students. And so this can vary by the size of your district or campus, your staff, and the resources. But anywhere you start, whether you start with 10 students or you start with 100 students, keep in mind that's 10 students that are being helped that may not have had the support before, or 100 students that may be helped that didn't have that support before. So you can start at any size and then continue to build out. When you want to develop a communication plan, think about who you want to reach out to. Again, I have talked to districts of all shapes and sizes. We know that at times our small and rural districts have very limited resources. So I always ask to step back and reflect, who can you reach out to? Is there a local Boy Scout group or Girl Scout group? Do you have a PTA or a PTO? Is there a local faith-based organization? The other thing to consider is your own campus and district staff. So I'm going to share a couple of stories with you from my own experience and how I actually utilized all of these to provide holiday sponsorship for all grade levels in different shapes and sizes. I've had Boy Scout and Girl Scout troops that had projects and reached out because at times they need a certain number of service hours. That also happens with secondary students that need a certain number of service hours for a project. So have a wish list. Oftentimes for elementary students, there is usually a blue or brown Santa entity within your community. And so during November is when I would gather that information for blue or brown Santa. And I always reference both because the school district I was in bordered us 2 different counties and 2 different cities. So depending on which campus, I needed to determine if they were eligible for brown Santa by the county or blue Santa by the city, and provided that information and had a sponsor, a community partner that provided blankets. So we would provide blankets to all our elementary students along with local holiday sponsorship information that was specifically for elementary students. So blue and brown Santa, usually they have an age limit of up to ages 11 or 12. And so we worked with our elementary campuses to disseminate that information during the Thanksgiving holiday. For the winter break or the Christmas holiday or the winter holiday, however you'd like to reference it, our goal was to sponsor our secondary students. It originally started with one PTA that offered to sponsor the middle school students at their campus, and one high school in which the administrators reached out to me and said, how can we help sponsor our high school students for the holiday? And so what we did is we created a wish list for our students who are secondary students of if they could receive one gift card in the amount of $25 and what their favorite snacks were. And so it only included their first name, the choice of gift card, and their favorite snacks. And we provided it to that PTA for that middle school and that administrator at that high school. And that's how our secondary sponsorship program started. We were able to grow that by emailing all our central administrative staff to sponsor a secondary student. And so by the time I left my district, we were able to sponsor every high school student experiencing homelessness and every middle school student experiencing homelessness by various PTA, PTO organizations, Boy Scouts troops, Girl Scout troops, central administration staff, and other departments within the district. And so I just kind of wanted to share that as an idea. The other thing that we were able to do is we had something called a giving tree. And with that giving tree, we worked with campus staff to pick something from that giving tree to help meet student needs. So this could be with holiday sponsorship or some basic needs. It could be pick a tab for a bottle of shampoo or for a package of wipes or for a toothpaste and toothbrush. It could be pick a tag for something as simple as a package of goldfish snacks. And so we wanted to make sure that it was something that was affordable, in which we could tap into our campus staff to help support the needs of our students. So these are just some examples that you can include in a proposal. You could include it at a faculty, staff, or district meeting. You can include it in an email just have a vision and purpose of how you would like to help your students and families. And if you do reach out to a community partner outside your district or campus, when you develop a proposal, always provide it in a tiered level of support. So if you want to help support 100 students, you want to break that down with that vision and what are the items you need or the monetary support to accomplish that goal. But also you want to think of something that's in between and then something that's above that goal. So a tiered report of what it would look like to sponsor 50 students, 100 students, or 150 students. Provide them options. And then last, whenever, like I said, you go talk to campus, district staff, or within the community, share a personal story to connect with your community partners. Nothing is more powerful than sharing your experience with one of your students. I often shared a story when I was asking for support for hygiene items about a student. She was very cute. She wanted a bubble bath. And so she decided to get the whole bottle of shampoo and create a bubble bath. But the family was so much in need. That was the shampoo for the whole family. And so they were just so distraught at what were resources to help them with some basic needs because their young one had used the whole bottle of shampoo for the family as a bubble bath. And that just broke my heart that a family would be that much in need and that stress over the loss of such a basic item that we may take for granted. You can also find a way to also support maybe your campus or district staff that may be in need as well and provide that sponsorship. So some key actions for success. Develop community partnerships to help support the needs of students, family, and your staff. That is the other thing I wanted to talk about right now. As we look at our students and families, we also need to take care of our staff. And I remember as a former homeless liaison, we did have campus and district staff that did experience a loss of housing during the holidays. And it was very hard for them to come forward and share their story and ask for assistance. But when we found out that our own staff was dealing with these challenges or barriers, we definitely came forward to support them and to let them know that we are a community. So I wanted to stress that as well, because again, our staff are going through tremendous challenges as well, and we want to make sure that they're taken care of. Lastly, hold virtual meetings to communicate identified needs and donation timelines to district or campus staff or community partners. Start a donation drive by providing a list of items and services needed. Again, district and campus staff are a great resource. I remember the district I was at, our transportation department would sponsor about 25 to 30 of our students for the holidays. Food pantries and grocery stores, reach out to them for donations. Draft a letter. They usually have a process and they have a timeline for donations. So reach out to them. Same with faith-based and charitable organizations. And then your PTA is always a great resource because PTAs want to support their own students. They want to ensure that their students attending their campus, if there's a need, they are willing to step up and support them. I'm a former PTA president, and we made sure that if there were any challenges and barriers, that we as a PTA came forward with supporting our own students and families. And so, like I said, I had multiple PTAs who came in and said, we want to sponsor our students experiencing homelessness for the holidays. And so you can create parameters in which you do protect the identity of the students by working with your administrators on the distribution of those items. But they are there to help support. And so tap into that PTA support. And then last, utilizing social media, radio, and television stations to communicate what donations or services are needed. And so I want to share that I know that there are many school districts right now that are doing a great job of utilizing social media to put out the call for what is needed for their students and families. So again, make sure it's your district or campus approved social media platforms. I wanted to stress that. Always be in alignment, always connect with your campus and district social media platforms. or PR, systems or requests, to put out the call for what is needed. Oftentimes, people just need to receive that, and they will help support you and your students. So I wanted to go ahead and share that information with you. And I just wanted to step back and say again, you don't have to start big. Start small. Put the word out. Start small. Have an idea of, if I get additional support than what I was originally seeking, what does that look like? Like I said, many years ago, when I stepped back to develop all these systems to support our students during the holidays, it came from finding out that one of the high school students who had been responsored and received a gift card. And again, when we worked with our sponsors, we provided parameters. They needed to provide a minimum of a $25 gift card and abundance of snacks for our students. We also indicated that if they wanted to give more than a $25 gift card, they could. So one year, there was one student who got a gift card, and the school reported back to me that he was so excited with all the snacks and looked at the gift card and said, "This gift card is not just for me, it's for my family, because now I can go buy my mom and my brother and sister something for the holidays." So that was coming from a secondary student. He didn't have to share, but he stepped back and saw that as an opportunity to give something to his mom and brother and sister, because he knew how hard things were at home. So every little bit makes a difference. Whatever you do will make an impact. And I know that these are hard times, but when we come together as a community to meet these basic needs for our students and families, we can and we will make a difference. So I hope this information has been helpful. All right. So now I am going to go ahead and transition to the next section of our webinar, which is providing highly mobile and at-risk student program updates. So I wanted to go ahead and share, and I'm actually very excited to share. First, I want to thank everybody who was able to attend our TEA, Texas Education Homeless Children and Youth Program Summit that occurred in September. Thank you so much. And I'm excited to share that in partnership with T-Noise, we're having some continuing professional development that is tied to the summit webinar. So T-Noise, our Texas Network with Youth Services, who is our partner with our summit, has already been reviewing evaluation data to help us move forward as we plan additional professional development. And so there's been two components that have been very prevalent in the evaluation data, which is more training on trauma responsive care and how to build relationships with our youth. So we will be having a resilience in action, building a youth adult partnerships through trust-based relational intervention, or TBRI as we refer it, training. And this will occur on Friday, November 20th. Part one of the training will be from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. and it will be providing trust-based relational intervention, TBRI training, and as a practical approach to trauma responsive care. The second part of the training will be occurring from 1 to 2 p.m. that afternoon, and it'll be about building authentic youth adult partnerships. This training will be free. If you attended the TEHCY Program Summit, you will be receiving an email from T-Noise about this to go ahead and register. If you did not attend the summit, this is open to anybody and everybody. We want to invite every school district, staff from our ESCs, our stakeholders, our community partners, other state agencies to come and participate in this training for free. We have provided a link at the bottom of the page in which you can access to register for this webinar. I also wanted to share that the timing of this training is also tied to that November is the National Homeless Youth Awareness Month. November was first declared as National Homeless Youth Awareness Month in 2007. Since then, November has been a time to acknowledge those children and families experiencing homelessness. Along with losing their home, community, friends, and routines, as well as their sense of stability and safety, many homeless youth are also victims of trauma. And so, in honor of National Homeless Youth Awareness Month, we are providing this training to provide additional professional development tied to the summit to continue the momentum of much of what we shared, but also to put a face on youth homelessness. And so I'm very excited that TEA, in partnership with TNOYS, will be providing this two-part learning opportunity. And again, I want to stress this is for anybody who attended the summit, also all LEAs, ESCs, and stakeholders. And so we encourage you to visit the TNOYS link that will be provided in this deck for you to register for this professional development. We will also be providing more information in our TEA McKinney-Vento newsletter, and it'll also provide more information about TBRI and the Karen Purvis Institute of Child Development. And so we are very excited to share this information. And before I move forward with the next section of the webinar, I also wanted to let you know that if you would like to include in the Padlet how you are helping to support your students, we'd love to hear any best practices or strategies that you're providing. We know that there has been a lot of challenges to engagement, to contacting our students, to their academics. We know that we've heard there's been challenges to attendance and academic progress. We would like to hear from you, best practices from the field in Padlet on how your district or campus is supporting your students, but we also want to hear the challenges and barriers that you are facing so we can utilize this information to continue to build additional trainings and resources. And so now I'm going to go ahead and hand it back over to Kelly Kravitz.
Great, thank you so much, Cal. Excellent, excellent information shared. Okay, great. Can everybody see that?
No, it's not showing up.
Not showing. Okay, just hold tight. Having a bit of trouble here, folks. Hang with us. Hey, Cal, can you go ahead and put the presentation back up on your screen?
Sure.
Great. Thank you.
There you go. Can you see it?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay.
Maybe you can go ahead and just put it into presentation mode. Great. So before we get into this next section, we have just heard so much phenomenal information. And I wanted to take a moment for you to think about who else needs to hear this information. So go ahead and get out a piece of pen and paper. Maybe you have your phone in front of you. You can drop a quick note to yourself. But thinking about the first section on mental health, who needs to know that information about the Safe and the Supportive School program within your district? Who needs to know the information about educator wellness? Make sure and jot down their name. Who needs to hear the information about how we use our data to identify and support students? Think about who those folks are and jot their name down. Think about the enrollment information and the new rule that supports students who are in foster care and students who are homeless. and thinking about enrollment and removing all barriers to enrollment. Think about who needs to know that information in your school or in your district. Community collaboration and community engagement as we're approaching the holidays and thinking about how we can work innovatively and together to support our students. Who could benefit from the information that was shared in that section? Please go ahead and take a moment to write their name down. And our additional section for the Texas Education for Homeless Children and Youth Summit that is actually free for the whole state on trauma and trauma-informed approaches and TBRI, phenomenal training that is from right here in Texas, and building relationships among students and adults. Who could benefit from participating? Who do you want to make sure and let know about that opportunity? Jot their name down. Thank you. Following today's presentation, make sure to share this information with the people within your community that need it. We have a very diverse division and we cover a lot of different topic areas. And we know that there's a lot of different professionals and leaders and school folks represented here today. And we just want to make sure and get the word out. We had about 1,500 people registered. I think there's about 600 of you that are on here live. And there's many, many more that need to hear the information that we have and that we've shared. So please join us in sharing this information with people who will benefit from learning about what we've shared today. Something I wanted to point out to you, there's been a number of changes concerning human trafficking prevention and awareness and requirements for schools concerning training. And this is not only training for all school staff, but this is training for school board of trustee members as well as superintendents. And so we have a new gateway module that's available that fulfills the educator requirements. But that is not sufficient in and of itself to meet the requirements for school board of trustee and superintendents. There has been a bit of confusion about these training requirements. Who needs to take what and who is responsible for what? And it's not only about training, but it's also about processes and about protocols and procedures and things that you're required to establish in your district. So you see here on this slide is a checklist that we created that really breaks down the requirements concerning human trafficking prevention and awareness, as well as child abuse and neglect. And so just wanted to make sure that you know about this resource and that you can find it. It's a bit of a one-stop shop for you to see all of the different requirements, and whether you're a school staff or you're a superintendent, what is the requirements and what do I need to do? And so that resource exists, and just wanted to make sure that you know about it. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Great, thank you. And I've got a few more updates on human trafficking that will come in a few slides, but we're going to go ahead and pivot, and we're going to talk briefly about the Purple Star Campus designation. And wanted to give a major shout out for the 106 campuses that are our first class and receiving this designation. And what this designation is, it is a special recognition for school campuses that applied for this designation. They met the requirements and are uniquely supporting the needs of military-connected students. This is a result of the 86th legislative session. And as Abby has been on previous presentations to share with you about this designation, it has been a work in progress over the last 6 months. And we are so pleased that on we're not in December yet, but on October 29th, we were able to notify campuses that received the designation. And on the 30th, a to the administrator letter went out to everyone in the state sharing about this designation. A couple things that I wanted to note is to receive the designation, these campuses had to designate a campus-based military liaison who is available for families and students and also provides professional development for their school. Another thing that these Purple Campus designated campuses, they are having an active website up and available with resources for military connected families. These campuses also have a campus transition program. And so that's a special program to welcome new students, military connected students, into the school environment and connect students to other student leaders through ambassador programs and things of the like. These campuses also have a special initiative, and that could be a resolution showing support for military connected students and families, participating in Month of the Military Child, or partnering with the school liaison officer for special recognition, supports and events for military connected students. This designation will last for 2 years, and these campuses are recognized on texasschools.gov. So anybody searching that database could see campuses that are recognized for their work with military connected students. Texas is one of 11 states that has the Purple Star designation. And this is the extra support that is needed to ensure success for our military connected students. For those of you out there that are on campuses that weren't awarded this year, but are interested in for next year, we would encourage you to check out the information that is available on our webpage so that you can apply in 21-22. And information about that process and when those dates are will be for future Zoom meetings that we have in the 2021 year. Make sure, here we go. There are a few upcoming training and events that we wanted you to know about within our division. I mentioned briefly the human trafficking module that is in the gateway. And so that's right there actually on the middle of the page. I jumped from bullet 1 to the middle of the page. So you see that. Please check out that gateway module. It's now available. In September, we said it was coming, and now it's available. A ton of work, a lot of review, collaboration with the governor's office, the attorney general. It's a phenomenal resource on human trafficking. And again, that meets the educator requirements for human trafficking prevention and awareness to be included in your district's child abuse and neglect training. We will be working on a comprehensive training in the future, but specifically the Gateway module does meet those human trafficking prevention requirements for educators. Now you can also work with local community members. You can seek out other training, but do want you to know this Gateway module is available. Something else that we are doing to support our military, or not our military work, specifically our human trafficking prevention, is a webinar series. We are working collaboratively with many stakeholder groups concerning human trafficking prevention and the rollout of these new trainings and requirements. Ultimately, we want to more effectively make educators aware of this horrific crime that goes on in every community in Texas. And so with our stakeholders, we are launching a webinar series, and there are a couple trainings that are coming up on Friday, tomorrow. Specifically for ESCs, we are going to have a training on asset mapping. ESC Region 12 and the governor's office have done some great work in assessing their region and specifically concerning human trafficking. And so they're going to be sharing that with other regions. So other regions are equipped to then work with their local schools and communities and really looking at and assessing the needs and resources available to address trafficking and how school communities respond. On December 5th, we're going to be having a Human Trafficking 101. And then in January, and it's not listed here, we will be having 2 different presentations for Human Trafficking Prevention Awareness Month. So please do make sure that you save the date. These are all going to be held on the first Friday of a month, and we have opportunities scheduled throughout the year. On the left, you can see the flyer that we have available to promote these opportunities. And we will also make sure to make that available in the chat for anybody who, or in the Padlet for anybody to be able to check out that resource. We also want to make sure that you get on your calendars our upcoming highly mobile and at-risk Zoom presentations. So the next time you'll hear from us as a group is on Thursday, February 4th. And we're going to shorten the presentation about 30 minutes. We do realize it's a lot. And so we are going to shorten it and make it from 1 to 2:30. And then you'll hear from us again on Thursday, April 29th. And this is actually at the end of April. And we really want to be considerate of testing and all that is going on with the end of the year. And so have decided to pivot from having it be early in the month to being later in the month. So for April, we will do it from 1 to 2:30. Did want to make sure that you do know another human trafficking training that is available. And this is specifically a collaboration that the governor's office did with this organization. Let me get my notes here, 3 Strands Global. And this is specifically around human trafficking prevention. And they have resources not only for educators, but also that can be used with students. And these are age appropriate and research-based resources and training materials. They are free to Texas until the end of February. And again, this is a very unique partnership that the governor's office did with 3 Strands Global to put together this training called Protect Texas. So if you click there, you can sign up through Eventbrite, and again, it's a free resource for you. And just some additional resources, wanted to remind you, all of the different FAQs that our division has created to support you all in response to COVID are linked here on this page. And as when we started the presentation, I shared where you could find it on our webpage, but if you have the deck, you can find that information right here. And then you can also find our mental health resources that Julie and Natalie mentioned, and those are linked at the bottom of the page. Some external resources that we wanted to highlight for you. Those are in the box on the right of the slide. And we do have individual email inboxes for each of our different program areas. So if you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to reach out. Here is the information of everybody that you heard from today. We are available to assist you. Look forward to communicating with you. Here's our phone number and our email addresses. And to sign up for updates from our division, we do have listservs for our highly mobile division broadly, but that's also all of our individual program areas. We want to make sure that you receive information and updates as it becomes available. So please do sign up for our listserv. And you can do that. Here's TEA's homepage. At the top right, you can sign up for updates. Here on the right are all of the different listservs that you can sign up for: foster care and student success, pregnancy programs, McKinney-Vento homeless education, our at-risk division listserv overall, military connected students, as well as mental and behavioral health. And as Jordan mentioned at the top of today, we would love to get your feedback. We do have a new feedback survey, and that is on the left. So the QR code, please do take a screenshot. And then on the right is the Padlet for any other questions or information that you'd like to submit. Please go ahead and do that by 5 p.m. today. And with that, I'd like to open it up for any questions that we could answer. We have about 13 minutes, so a little bit of extra time, and wanted to answer any questions that may have come in during the presentation for any of our panelists today.
Okay, so I have a couple of questions prepared here that I've noticed. So for the mental health team, Julie and Natalie, we had some districts that said they were interested in participating in the pilot project for Project Restore. Who would they contact for more information about that?
That is being put together now to begin in January, and NELOI is working on that. And why don't you go ahead and email me, Julie Wayman, at tea.texas.gov.
Great. Okay. And can charter schools participate? Do we know about that?
Absolutely. A charter school would be absolutely welcome to put on the list, and we will be glad to work with the charter school as well as an LEA.
Great. So we had another question that said, what if our district hasn't done anything to support mental health and wellness for staff or students? Where do I start to promote all of what I've learned today?
Okay, well, what a great question that is. I really love that. That's someone asked that question. Appreciate that so much. You know, one place I would start would be our behavioral and our mental and behavioral health webpage at TEA. It has a landing page, and then it has about 8 or 9 subpages with it. And there's some great guidance on there on best practices to explore that are approved for mental and behavioral health. I think that that would be a wonderful place to start. In addition, I think Cal and Homeless, you know, the teaching program has some things, because mental and behavioral health in our division supports all of the special populations that we're talking to and about today. And I think you're going to find it integrated through all of these resources that are on the resource page that the division provided. And Cal or Kelly, you might want to add a little more to that. And on our mental health page, I just want to say we're also, I would suggest you consider coming to the preview of the School Mental Health Toolkit on November 19th, right before you go to the TBRI training on the 20th, and kind of start taking a deeper dive into these resources. And then I'm going to suggest one more thing, which is taking a walk through the Project Restore 6 modules. There's 5 up. The 6th module drops this Thursday. So I would start also with just kind of walking through what people are dealing with mental health wise during COVID and some of the great strategies that are embedded in there. I think that you'll find that very helpful. So those are some places that I would start.
I might also, that's great information, Julie, and that's a great question. Might also suggest that you reach out to the Education Service Center that supports your school district, because each of the ESCs also have mental health teams who are trained in multiple different types of trainings and strategies that they can work with you and consult on how to build a comprehensive school mental health system.
Totally agree with that. That's totally wonderful.
I wanted to go ahead and chime in and say that the training we're providing on November 20th, I highly recommend the TBRI training. It's a good place to start. So I would encourage you to join us for that training and bring friends, bring all that you can bring.
Awesome. Okay, so a couple of questions on transition assistance, Cal. What happens if a homeless student doesn't provide the identification documents within the 30 days?
So that's actually a great question. We've gotten a lot of calls about that. And so I would need to know a little more information before we can provide it's not an easy black or white answer. I would need a little more information about when the student enrolled, how the family's been notified about the records, what's been received. One good best practice that I want to share is if a student and family, when you're enrolling them, we really should be coaching our registrars, and I myself as a former registrar, is asking the students, our families, to provide at least I would say 3 to 4 of the last schools that they attended. Because if our student has been highly mobile, and let's say they've been only at one campus for 2 to 3 months and maybe or less, and that records request didn't occur, and I would say, did you reach out to the previous school or the school before that? So if it has been the 30 days, the first thing that I would ask is, have you reached out to other campuses to get the records? And then specifically, I would need to know what records are missing that have not been provided within the 30 days. So we would definitely need some more information because as we know with McKinney-Vento, there's always a lot of nuances. And so if you would reach out to me directly, I could go ahead and talk to you and provide you coaching and assess any situation. But again, it would be depending on what it is and then what records are missing and what resources have we provided to the parent or support in obtaining that information.
Great, thanks, Cal. A question on the data and engagement section. Are the crisis codes for the specific date of October 30th, or is it for how students are engaged up to that date?
That's a great question, and I have this information right here because I anticipated getting a question about that. So let me go ahead and read that information. So the crisis code data, the first submission was reported the students that were enrolled in your LEA on September 8th that were receiving on-campus, remote synchronous, or remote asynchronous. The second submission, which is tomorrow, is looking at students that are enrolled in your LEA as of October 30th and receiving on-campus, remote asynchronous, or remote synchronous. So it's specific to the day. So it's a snapshot on the 28th, and then it's another snapshot on the 30th. So it's specific to that exact date. Great question.
Great, okay. We had a question about migrant students, actually. Someone noticed that the migrant students were included in the highly mobile engagement guide, and they're wondering if the migrant education students are going to be added to the highly mobile group.
Oh, that's a great question. So the migrant education program initially, when this division was created, was included, but with some reorganization at the agency, that program is now overseen by our grants division. And so we did include migrant students in the guide because that is a highly mobile group, and they are actually noted under our highly mobile and at-risk website with COVID resources as well. And so resources that program has made available are listed there, but due to some internal reorganization, that program is no longer in our division. But we do collaborate and coordinate. We're actually going to be at AMIT, and so much of the good work that we're doing, I mean, just the partnership with the migrant program is really critical to our work, and we definitely see where there's alignment and linkages, and have worked to strengthen that.
Awesome. I'm looking, we have a couple more since we have a little bit of time. Cal, is there any way to assist homeless students or families in obtaining birth certificates?
So yes, there is a way within the state of Texas in which they can receive support. So again, if it's a student who is born in the state of Texas, there actually are some resources, and we can go ahead and provide that information and the response to the question in the Padlet. I know last time we provided responses, so we can go ahead and provide that resource for students who are experiencing homelessness, but it is specific for students who were born in the state of Texas. It's a great question, and we'll include that in the FAQ from the webinar.
Okay, great. I think that's all the questions that we could answer today. I just want to reiterate that the presentation will be posted following the presentation. So the PDF of the presentation deck, we currently don't have it available right now, but you will receive a notification once it's posted. And the links are also shared in the Padlet as well if you need access to those ahead of time. I think that's it.
Great, thank you, Jordan. And I did drop into the chat as well where you can find the webinar and where it will be posted, as well as where previous webinars have been posted. Thank you all for your time today and joining us. Have a wonderful holiday season, and we will see you back in February. Take care.